Hey, what's going on, students? Thanks for joining me today. Today, I'm going to be going through a slideshow presentation talking about tides. This will all be stuff that you will see on your quiz this week, so make sure you're paying attention, taking notes, and being ready to learn. Let's go. So there's two main things that determine our tides, and they're very, very, very consistent. It's the moon moving around the earth and the sun. Basically, the moon and the sun have a gravitational pull on the earth, and it's all caused by gravity, which is awesome. Hey, what's going on, students? Again, we're going to be talking about tides, high tides, low tides, tidal bulges, all these beautiful things that involve the ocean. I know we're in Ohio and the oceans don't really affect us because there isn't an ocean for about, 400 miles east, but it is something that's important, especially if you want to go to the ocean and schedule a vacation and you want to learn how to bodyboard. You need to know when the high tides are and the low tides. And you don't want to go on vacation during neap tides because then the waves are always really weak, but we'll get into that as we learn together. So let's go ahead and get into it. So what objects will have a gravitational attraction to the Earth? Well, that's going to be the sun and the moon. Which one has a greater gravitational pull on the Earth's tides? Well, that's definitely going to be the moon, because the moon is very close to us. Why does the moon have a greater gravitational pull on the Earth's tides? And it's simply because it's closer. The moon exerts a gravitational pull on the Earth that causes the oceans to rise and fall. And we call that tides. The moon's gravitational pull causes the oceans to bulge on the Earth's surface. So whenever we have these types of bulges, I've got the moon here, and then I've got this large bulge that's facing the moon, and then I've got one on the back side. So just to give you an idea, this is the United States here, and this is the Great Lakes, so you are about right there, currently sitting in your chair watching this video from Columbus, Ohio. So right now, there are high tides in this diagram for the eastern part of South America, the western part of Africa, as well as Spain and Portugal over in Europe. And then over here, the high tides would be in like East Asia and Australia and Indonesian islands. The ocean will bulge in two places: the side of the Earth facing the moon, as well as the side of the Earth that is facing away from the moon. Each of these bulges cause a high tide. So at the same time, there are low tides going on. So let's say you're right here in the United States, in Ohio, in Columbus, sitting at your house. There would be low tides for the United States, Central America, Western South America, and then on the opposite side of the Earth as well. The high tides always follow the moon. The high tides always follow the moon. That's very important because of the gravitational pull that the moon has on the Earth. It's constantly pulling on the Earth's surface. And it's way easier to move water than it is to move land. So our oceans are affected the most. The difference between the level of the ocean from its high tide to its low tide is called a tidal range. So how high is the water at high tide? How low is the water at low tide? How many high tides and low tides occur each day? Well, there's two. You have two high tides and two low tides every day. How long does it take for the Earth to rotate once on its axis? It's 24 hours. For the Earth to rotate on its axis is going from morning to day to evening to night and back to morning. That's the Earth spinning on its axis one time, making one complete rotation, is 1 day or 24 hours. How many hours are between a high tide and a low tide? And it's only 6 hours. Because remember, there has to be 2 sets of tides each day. So we have to have 2 high tides and 2 low tides. So 6 times 4 is... Mr. Spoonmore, it's 24. You're right. Congratulations. And how many hours are there between 2 high tides? And that's 12 hours, or half of a day. So when you go to the ocean, you might have a high tide in the morning and then one during the evening. At any given time of the day, how many high tides are there? Well, there's 2. The types of tides. High tides that are higher than normal are called spring tides. These are when you'll have the biggest waves coming in when you're at the ocean. This also means that a low tide is lower than normal during a spring tide. During this time is when you should go to the ocean and try to find seashells, because the water in that bulge will pull the water so much more during spring tides that during a low tide, you will be able to walk out super far, like probably 1/8 of a mile out. For most beaches on the east coast of the United States, you can walk out and find all kinds of shells. Spring tides occur during full moon and a new moon. Spring tides only occur during full moon and new moon. That's something you need to remember. The gravitational pull of the sun and moon are combined together, since the sun, the earth, and the moon are all in a straight line. So during spring tides, we talked that the gravitational pull from the moon and the sun are now working together because they're all in a straight line. So that tidal bulge is being pulled by the moon in one direction, and on the exact opposite side during a full moon, the sun is also pulling on that bulge, and it makes it even larger, which is really cool. So if you think about it too, during a new moon, if the earth, the moon, and the sun are all in a straight line again, that gravitational pull on the Earth's surface is going to be even greater because the moon and the sun are completely working together. High tides that are lower than usual are called neap tides. And neap tides only happen during first quarter and third quarter moons. So these high tides are really kind of weak, and the low tides are kind of weak. So the amount of tidal range is very, very, very small. So the gaps between high tides and the gaps between low tides are not very significant during this time of the month, and that's during the first quarter and the third quarter. This means that the high tides are not very high and the low tides are not very low. Neap tides occur during the first and last quarter of the moon phases. So whenever you see a first quarter moon or a third quarter moon, so you can see 25 or 50% of what's lit up in the sky, the waves at the ocean and the tides will not be as severe because the moon is pulling in this direction and it's pulling in this direction, but the sun is still having a gravitational effect here and here. So they are essentially working against each other. This means that the moon's gravitational pull is partially canceled out by the sun's gravitational pull. So you might be thinking, well, the sun is massive and we are constantly revolving around the sun, so the sun must have the greatest effect on our tides. Done. Roll credits. Next video. And that's not true, because the moon is so much closer to the Earth that the gravitational pull of the moon on the Earth causes our tides here on planet Earth. The moon might be 400 times smaller than the sun, but the moon is 400 times closer to us. So, it has a greater gravitational pull on our planet as compared to the sun. So students, thanks for watching. Keep checking back to the Google Classroom. Keep checking the YouTube channel. I will be uploading videos for all of our lessons to give you kind of an additional view of what's going on. Also, make sure that you're checking your Google Classroom on a daily basis. Also, my office hours are listed on the Google Classroom, so if you have questions or need more assistance, I'm always here to help you. Take care of yourself out there, and make sure you're washing your hands. Later!